Now it's time for all the day's business news. Stephen Carroll is here with me. Let's start with that slap on the wrist for Apple.
Yeah, the tech giant's going to have to repay $32 million to consumers to settle a US regulatory complaint over how they handle purchases made in applications on the iPhone or the iPad. Now, the Federal Trade Commission says that US consumers were billed for charges incurred by children who were using their parents' accounts without giving their express permission. Nicholas Rushworth has the story.
Not so much bad Apple as naughty Apple. It has got a slap on the wrist from the Federal Trade Commission in the United States for letting children buy products using mobile apps without mummy or daddy knowing.
Apple failed to tell parents they were authorizing a charge for a virtual item to be used in the app, as well as opening a 15-minute window during which their child could make unlimited additional purchases without further action by the parent.
The FTC said tens of thousands of customers in the US had been affected. One mum said her child spent $2,600 while playing the game Tap Pet Hotel. Apple agreed to full refunds but is putting on a pout. It settled a class action suit last February on the same issue, forking out tens of millions to 23 million affected customers. Apple CEO Tim Cook said it doesn't feel right for the FTC to sue over a case that had already been settled. However, we decided to accept it rather than take on a long and distracting legal fight. Under the settlement, Apple will now have to change its billing practices to make it more obvious that purchases are taking place.
Now, after the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund is also being optimistic about the global economy, but it comes with a warning, Stephen.
Yeah, and that warning is deflation or falling prices. That's a concern for economies because if prices are coming down, consumers tend to stop spending in the hope that those prices will come down even further. Now, the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the fund, says that the deflation could be disastrous for the global recovery, and she's called on central banks to rein in their monetary stimulus as soon as growth is seen to stabilise.
With inflation running way below central bank targets in most corners, clearly we are seeing rising risk of deflation, which could prove disastrous for the recovery. If inflation is the genie, then certainly deflation is the ogre. That must be fought decisively.
Now, in the US, Stephen, more progress towards a budget agreement there.
Yeah, a significant hurdle has been passed in this spending bill that's working its way through the Congress. The House of Representatives approved the $1.1 trillion spending plan by a majority of 359 to 67 votes. Now, it's not a complete budget. It avoids many of the most contentious areas, but it will avoid another government shutdown of the likes that we saw back in October. And the law now goes to the Senate, or the bill rather now goes to the Senate for approval before being signed into law by President Obama.
OK, update us on the markets, please.
OK, well, after a record high on the S&P 500 on Wall Street yesterday, the Asian markets have failed to hold on to those gains in trading today. You can see the Nikkei there is down in the red. Japan had its best day in 4 months on the markets yesterday, but it's back in the red today after investors chose to take their profits out of those Japanese stocks. Over in Sydney, not a market we usually check in on, but just to let you know that the figures on employment there showing that 22,000 fewer people were employed there in December. That sent the Australian dollar down in value to a 3.5-year low, but the market's not too depressed, up over 1%, as you can see.
And you've some companies news for us this Thursday.
Yeah, we're going to start with Carrefour, the French supermarket chain whose sales grew by 3.2% in the last 3 months of 2013 to 22.2 billion euros. Its biggest growth is in Latin America, while the figures for the home market of France were up by 1.3%. Excluding petrol, sales dipped slightly in Europe over that period. Last month, Carrefour, the world's second largest retailer, announced a plan to buy out 127 shopping centres in Europe in an effort to modernise its stores. Deutsche Bank has suspended a number of currency traders in New York as part of a wider investigation into rate rigging. The German firm is the world's biggest foreign exchange trader with around 15% of the market. The US Justice Department and British financial regulators have been investigating irregularities in the rates of currency exchange since last year. Deutsche Bank says it's cooperating with their inquiries. And things are looking up for the mining firm Rio Tinto, which reported an increase in production and delivery volumes in 2013. The Anglo-Australian company says shipments were up by 6% between October and December. It comes after the firm was forced to slash costs by more than $2 billion last year.
And we finally have the answer to one of the mysteries of last year. Who bought the Francis Bacon artwork that broke all sales records?
Yeah, that's right. You may remember the studies. The 3 studies of Lucy and Freud was the name of the work, sold by auction last November for an eye-watering $142.5 million. It was the highest price paid ever for a painting at auction. The sale only lasted 10 minutes, but the identity of the buyer has remained a mystery until now. It's emerged that the buyer was Elaine Wynne. She's the billionaire ex-wife of casino magnate Steve Wynne. She was married twice to him, in fact, divorcing for the second time in 2010. And as part of the settlement, she was granted shares in the company worth $741 million. At the time she bought this painting, her net worth was valued around $1.9 billion by Forbes magazine. Now, she's since put the artwork on temporary display in Portland. She's also a patron of the art, so it'll be interesting to see what she chooses to do with it in the future.
Very nice of her to share it. Stephen Carroll, thank you very much for that roundup of the business news. And it's time now for web news, and American actress Jennifer Lawrence is the latest internet sensation.